The Hoop Heads Podcast is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
Most championship teams will go through adversity. It's the teams that can recognize that adversity and push through that adversity to come out stronger.
Jake Kelfer is the author of the new book, The Elevated Entrepreneur, which unlocks the secrets of high performance through interviews with some of the world's most successful and high-performing people. Kelfer is a lifestyle entrepreneur, life elevator, and coach to ambitious entrepreneurs and freedom seekers, helping people create incredibly impactful and profitable businesses. Jake is also the founder of the Pro Basketball Combine, which helps NBA draft prospects turn their dreams of playing pro ball into their reality. The Professional Basketball Combine is a secondary draft combine designed to give players an opportunity to showcase their talents in hopes of being selected to play professional basketball. Hey Hoopheads, I wanted to take a minute to shout out our partners and friends at Dr. Dish Basketball. Their Dr. Dish shooting machines are undoubtedly the most advanced and user-friendly machines on the market. Sign up now for their Virtual Camp 2.0 featuring 10 days of workouts with pro trainers from the Dr. Dish family. Learn more at drdishbasketball.com and follow their incredible content at Dr. Dish B-Ball on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Mention the Hoopheads podcast and save an extra $300 on the Dr. Dish Rebel, All-Star, and CT models. Visit drdishbasketball.com for details. That's a great deal, Hoopheads. Get your Dr. Dish shooting machine today.
Hi, everybody. This is Mark Schultz, assistant men's basketball coach at Center College, and you're listening to the Hoopheads podcast.
If you're looking to improve your coaching, please consider joining the Hoopheads Mentorship Program. We believe that having a mentor is the best way to maximize your potential and become a transformational coach. By matching you up with one of our experienced mentors, you'll develop a one-on-one relationship that will help your coaching, your team, your program, and your mindset. The Hoopheads Mentorship Program delivers mentoring services to basketball coaches at all levels through our team of experienced head coaches. Find out more at hoopheadspod.com or shoot me an email directly, mike@hoopheadspod.com. Follow us on social media at hoopheadspod on Twitter and Instagram, and be sure to check out the Hoopheads Podcast Network for more great basketball content. Prepare like the pros with the all-new Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Fast Draw has been the #1 play diagramming software for coaches for years. You'll quickly see why Fast Model Sports has the most compelling and intuitive basketball software out there. For a limited time, Fast Model is offering new subscribers 10% off Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Just use the code SAVE10 at checkout to grab your discount, and you'll be on your way to more efficient game prep and improved communication with your team. Fast Model also has new coaching content every week on its blog, plus play and drill diagrams on its play bank. Check out the links in the show notes for more. Fast Model Sports is the best in basketball. Be prepared to take some notes as you listen to this episode with Jake Kelfer, author of The Elevated Entrepreneur. Hello and welcome to the Hoopheads Podcast. It's Mike Linsing here with my co-host Jason Sunkel tonight, and we are pleased to welcome back to the Hoopheads Pod the author of the brand new book, The Elevated Entrepreneur, which is coming soon, Jake Kelfer. Jake, welcome back to the Hoopheads Pod.
Oh man, it's great to be back. I'm fired up. Let's get it.
Excited to have you on. Want to dive into this new book. Start out by giving us the elevator pitch on the book, what it's all about, why people should go out and get it, and just the excitement that you have behind it, which is obvious.
Amazing, man. Yeah, so this book is called The Elevated Entrepreneur, and the entire premise is it's about unlocking the secrets of the world's greatest coaches, performers, and entrepreneurs. And the entire premise is I interviewed 39 of the world's best experts, ranging from online entrepreneurs to coaches to motivational speakers to even some governors across the United States. And I asked them all to share their best secrets, their best stories, their best tips, their best tricks, so you can become a higher performer, someone who achieves more productivity, and someone who achieves true freedom in their life. And so the book breaks down the best of the best from the best of the best. And you'll learn everything from what the wildly successful do differently than everyone else to how to build relationships that'll change your life and business overnight. And it is just the book that I'm most proud of at this point. And I'm really honored to be able to be here and talk about it, type it up, and to get it in front of your listeners.
So you get an opportunity to put the book together and you start thinking about what you wanted it to be. How did you come up with the list of people that you wanted to interview? What did that process look like coming up with the list?
So initially, this idea that I had, and I think this is the same kind of process that we go through whenever we're trying to create something new. All right. And for me, the initial idea was much different than what the book actually became. And when I was starting this is I wanted to interview people on what does success mean to them. I wanted to interview people from all walks of life, all different professions, ethnicities, backgrounds, sexual orientation, everything. And I started interviewing all these people. I interviewed the dean of religious life from a college. I interviewed a rabbi. I interviewed a random guy I met on a plane who's from Iowa, whose daughter won American Idol. Like, I did all these interviews. I interviewed a happiness professor from Harvard. And as I was doing all these interviews, though, I was like, you know what? These are all really great, but it's a little bit broad. And while it's awesome to share this and share these insights, I need to make it a little more specific. So I got really, really focused on, well, who are the best performers? Who are the people that have, in my mind, achieved their definition of success, who have achieved a level of freedom in their life that's admirable, and who can share that with people who want to have more in their life? And that's what led me to really focusing on entrepreneurs and coaches and performers, because those people I felt were able to give the best of the best so that we could really implement, learn, and execute.
Who of the people that you talked to for the book was the most surprising interview, where maybe you went into it thinking, I'm not sure maybe what kind of personality this person has, or I'm not sure how dynamic they are, but wow, they really knocked it out of the park when you talked to them? Who maybe fits that definition?
Oh, there's a couple of those that come to mind. The first person, and it wasn't even that he knocked it out of the park and I was completely surprised. It's that I expected him to be good and he was just excellent. Okay, and this guest, his name is John Gordon. And John Gordon, I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but he speaks all over the world to the Rams, to NBA teams. He works with Clemson. He does all these things. He's written like 20-something books. And the reason why this was such like an amazing, amazing interview is because his book, Training Camp, was one of the first self-help books I ever read when I was a senior in high school playing basketball. And this book is all about this football player overcoming adversity in training camp to make an NFL roster. And it's like a business fable. And it just blew my mind. And so 10 years later, I now have this guy that I've looked up to. I've read every one of his books coming into my world and being in one of my books. And it was just one of those moments where you're like, this is what life's all about. You never know what's going to happen. You follow some people, you learn from some people, and then who knows, they may end up being a friend or a colleague or a partner. And so when I got to interview him and hear his story and really dive into it, it was just one of those like really cool moments. So the surprise was that he just over-delivered, which was awesome. There were some other amazing people as well that I thought were really, really great, who I didn't even know. So half of the people that came in the book, almost half of them, were through introductions or from me cold outreaching them because I'd seen their name a couple times or I'd seen them on a podcast. And so a lot
All
of...
right, hey, stop for a second. I got a question for you. So what's your method for cold emailing people? Simply the reason why I'm asking is because Jason and I, obviously with the podcast, there are times where we reach out cold to people to see if they want to be on the podcast. The same way most of our people come, the same way that they come for you, is that we have somebody who's a guest on the show. They recommend somebody, hey, you should talk to this person, you should talk to that person. And that's how most of our guests come. But still, there are times where we have to make that cold call. We have to send out that cold email. So what does that process look like for you? I didn't mean to interrupt, but I thought this was a relevant question right at the moment.
No, this is a great question. And I'm thankful you interrupted me because this is so important and so practical here. So my process of doing this cold outreach is I have a general template and script that I use that I can share if you guys think that would be valuable to you guys and the listeners. You guys want to hear what that is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. So I typically do one of two things. And the main script that I use is a very simple 4-step process. Step number 1 is I address them by the correct name. All right. You think it's obvious, but the amount of people that get my name wrong, which is Jake, is unbelievable. I get people calling me Jack. I get people calling me Jeff. And it's like, come on, just like it's right there. It's 4 letters. It's as easy as it gets.
Hey, Jake, I'm going to interrupt you. I get called Jake all the time. That's not even my name. I'm Jason, but I get called Jake all the time.
Well, it is a great name, though. So
it is. It's my son. It's my son's name too. So, but it's funny because I get Jake all the time. So there you go. I just thought I'd share that with you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, man. But it is true. Like, just put in the effort. You know what I mean? Like, that's all it is. So that's why I say that's step number 1. Step number 2 is you got to mention something that breaks the ice. So I refer to this as a commonality or a how you found them moment. So for example, if someone's listening to this pod and they're like, I want to pitch to be on the pod, or I want to pitch to get to know Jake, or whatever it is, you want to say, hey, I heard you on Hoops Head Pod. Like, make sure, Jake, you were awesome here. I loved what you talked about X, Y, Z. You're telling me how you found me, and immediately that puts you in a different category than all the other people who are trying to get access to my time and my attention, right? If you don't know how you found them, or there's nothing really that intriguing, mention a commonality. So find something, spend 30 seconds to 2 minutes going on their social profiles, kind of looking at all their pages and seeing, do you have something in common? Maybe you like the same weather. Maybe you grew up in the same town. Maybe you like the same college. Maybe you just like the sport they like. Put something in there that is relevant to that person. Okay. Once you've done that, you've broken down the initial guard. The next thing to do is to ask your question. Be super quick with the ask, be intentional with it, and make it very clear and easy for them to say yes or no. You never want to give them an opportunity to say maybe. You want to give them a very quick yes or no, or give them something that triggers an emotional response. So here's what I mean by that. Let's say you want to ask them to get some advice from them. If you ask somebody for a piece of advice, they're going to give you a blanket answer, because most people get asked this question over and over and over again. But if you change this question to, what is one thing that you wish you knew when first starting XYZ that would have accelerated your path to success? Well, now what you've done is you've opened the door for them to go down memory lane. You're allowing them to relive some of their past experiences, and they're going to share a story with you because of that, rather than a blanketed piece of advice. All right. And then the final piece of the puzzle here is to really express your gratitude for that connection. So looking forward to chatting again. Thank you so much in advance, or whatever it is that you want to do to set the tone, because that's going to not only make them feel like you're waiting for a response, but it's also going to allow them to say, or allow you to follow up with them again if they don't respond. So you're opening the door for future communication, which is huge, because the follow-up is often the most productive thing you can do in this entire sequence whenever you reach out to anybody new. So that's like a very quick script if you're using Instagram or a social media platform that you really want to just jump the gun there. When you're on email, I'd like to add a little bit more, where I like to give one sentence about like who I am, just so it's not completely blind. But the difference between social and email is you have a little bit more space to work with in terms of someone's attention span.
Makes complete sense. So once you get these people in your sphere and you know you're going to get an opportunity to talk to them, and you're starting to coalesce with your ideas for the book, how did you go about putting together the categories of success? I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it, that you wanted to be able to focus in on, that you wanted to be able to share with your readers. In other words, as you started having these conversations, did you already have sort of the categories in mind? Like, did you know that you wanted to learn about productivity? Did you know that you wanted to learn about leadership? Or was it, I want to interview these people and kind of see what themes emerge?
It's a little bit of combo of both. I had an idea of what I was looking for, because, as much as I do this for everybody, and the premise is to give everyone a chance to learn from this and implement this, is I also want to learn from these people as well, right? Like, I'm going to interview so many amazing people. I hope I can learn as well. And so I was like, what are the things that I want to continue to improve on in my own life? And what are the things that people are always asking me about, right? Because if people are asking me about it, that means more people have those questions and other people are being asked about it. So I knew that productivity, high performance, and achieving freedom were things that a lot of people want to have in their life. And so that kind of laid the foundation. And then it kind of came to, well, what questions do I want to ask? Do I want to ask, everybody just a bunch of different questions? Or do I want to kind of have similar questions? And then I can do some analysis on the answers to find differences, similarities, commonalities, and really be able to understand what makes that person or what makes a certain person achieve X result. And I ended up doing a series of questions that are related to performance, productivity, freedom, happiness, relationships, success. And what the result is blew my mind. And part of the book is my analysis on, what are the big commonalities or what are big realizations that I found by asking these amazing, amazing experts the same questions, but I was able to get different responses. And I think that that's such a testament to how people operate is there's no one way to achieve success. There's no right way to live life. But when you can combine the knowledge from all these amazing people and then make it your own and add your own flair, that's the secret sauce. That's where you can start having achievement mixed with fulfillment. And I think that was something that kind of blossomed from this book after writing it.
Are you tired of slipping and sliding on the court and sticky sheets just aren't giving you grip? Grip Spritz solves this problem without having to lick your hand to clean your shoes. Grip Spritz is used by countless AAU, high school and college programs, semi-pro teams, as well as NCAA athletes and G League players. Unlike other products, Grip Spritz has solutions for individual players, not just entire teams. We've used Grip Spritz at our Head Start basketball camps and players love it. To keep you and your team from slipping and sliding, visit gripspritz.net to learn more. So when I think about our audience that's listening to the podcast, I think about coaches. And when we're talking about this book, give me some thoughts that you were able to discern from the people that you interviewed that might be beneficial to someone who is a high school basketball coach, a college basketball coach, something that could make them more productive, something that could help their daily performance, something that could help them with their happiness. Pick out one or two things that you think are really relevant to coaches.
All right, two things come to mind right off the bat, and I'm sure I come up with a bunch of other things. The first thing is relationships are everything. I ask every single person a question about relationships, and every single person said they are everything. Now, why is this relevant to coaches specifically? The reason this is so powerful and so important is because we know as coaches, we know as people in this space that our relationships matter. Yet, we rarely spend as much time developing our relationships as we do focusing on the game plan that we expect those relationships that we've developed, the people we've developed those relationships with, to execute on. So I would challenge everybody to make sure that when you're building relationships, that you're doing it not to get some players to like you, not to get a coach to hire you, not to advance your career, but to do it in a way that lets people know you actually care about them. To do something in a way where you let your players know that you have their back. Because when people feel loved, and I call this the feeling of elevation, when people feel loved, they feel heard, they be complimented, they feel valued, they're going to perform better for you. They're going to want to help you achieve your goals. Whereas if you're a coach, you're going to want to achieve championships. You're going to want to win. And when you're players, when you're assistant coaches, when the people you work with in the facilities, the gym managers, whoever it may be, when you have the right relationships, you foster them the right way, people are going to perform for you. And those little differences in relationships are going to lead to wins. And over the season, those are going to accumulate. And that's what's going to take you to the playoffs and win the championships. So that's one thing. Big, big, big on relationships. The second thing that I think is super, super, super relevant is most people don't know what we're doing until we know what we're doing, okay? And what I mean by this specifically is we can learn from all these other coaches. We could listen to the Coach K's. We can listen to the coaches all over the world who are the best in the game. But until we implement those things and take it from listening to implementation, we will never be able to see if it works for our coaching style and for the players that we have. So I think that that's something super important. And a third thing, I'm just going to throw this in there, is not every player or every team should be coached the same. When we go through life, when we go through coaching in businesses, in life, with families, your relationships, not every person resonates with the same message. So it's our job to make sure that we are authentic to ourselves, but we also make sure that we be able to find a way to get through to somebody else. And so I think those are really important characteristics that are really valuable for coaches at whatever level you coach at.
Those are three great concepts that I think any coach can take and begin to implement into their daily life and think about and improve their performance. What I hear when I'm listening to you talk about that is, in my own head, I'm hearing my own little voice inside my head that's saying, I end up getting caught up oftentimes in my day-to-day tasks. So I'm a coach. I got to plan practice. I got to make sure I'm watching game film of our next opponent. I got to make sure I'm doing X, Y, and Z. I've got to get the meals ordered for after the game. I got to sign the bus form to make sure we got transportation to get to the game. Whatever it is, I end up getting caught up in those day-to-day things. And what you just talked about, I think, are things that require more long-term planning, more time to sit and reflect and think about not just what I have to do day-to-day, minute by minute, but more, what's my long-term vision? What's my mission? What's my why? And I think a lot of us tend to get caught up in our day-to-day life, and we don't necessarily carve out or do a good job of carving out the kind of time to sit and think about some of those deeper issues and things that you just talked about. So did any of your interviewees for the book, or maybe you yourself have some thoughts on this, how can coaches carve out time to be able to see the big picture stuff and still have time to get their day-to-day work done, if that question makes sense?
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, let's also make it very clear that it's very hard to do everything, right? Like it's really hard to do everything. And coaches, you guys, I mean, it's unbelievable what coaches do, right? And so let's not beat around the bush here and say, oh, it's easy, like let's just do this thing and it's all good. No, it's hard, and it requires work, and it requires trial, it requires error, it requires experimentation. But what I would say is, when you look at your calendar, are you filling it up with every little thing that you need to do, or are you filling it up with the priorities and the intention of what's going to produce the ultimate end goal of you as a coach? And what I mean by this specifically is, when you're putting your calendar together for the week, what is the thing that's most important to do to get your team and you ready to achieve the most success based on your definition as a coach? Sometimes we're putting things on our calendar that actually don't need to get done at the speed that we think they do. Or we're not putting things on the calendar that will have a greater impact for us to achieve the longer term goal. And so I would say, look at your calendar. How do you place things on your calendar? Are you doing things because you feel like you should because that's what other coaches do? Or are you doing the things that's going to help your team, your organization, get to the level of performance that you know you're capable of and that you strive to achieve? So that would be the thing that I would say is really important to ask yourself is, do you have the right calendar? Are you being intentional with what you're putting on that calendar? And are you making sure that your priorities for the long-term goal are executed?
What systems did people talk to you about when it came to that kind of long-term planning and that type of long-term thought? So I'm thinking here, how many of your interviewees talked about journaling or meditation or some other system that they used for planning out, whether it's their day, their month, their year, their life in the big picture? What kind of systems did people share with you when it came to planning both day-to-day and long-term?
So one of the questions that I ask everybody as well is, what's one daily action that you recommend somebody do to be the best version of themselves, right? And the intention behind this was, what can we do day to day to create the future of tomorrow? And this is kind of like what you're asking. And what we found was an overwhelming majority of the people focused on something related to individual self-care and filling up your own cup, such as making sure you get enough sleep, hydrating, making sure you move your body, expressing gratitude, journaling, meditation, deep work, okay? All these things that are related to you as the individual. And I'll give you a little backstory on this of why this was like so exciting for me to hear all this is because I was at a Shabbat dinner one time, and the rabbi was there. In the Jewish culture on Shabbat, you pour some wine and you do a cheers, a l'chaim, you bless the wine. And I'm sitting there, and normally you just have a little sip. Now, the rabbi, he's pouring it into his glass and his chalice, and I'm like, okay, rabbi, like I see you. And then he starts talking to somebody while he's turning his head, and he just keeps pouring and pouring and pouring. And I'm like, dude, like your glass is about to overflow. Like, what are you doing? And he looks back and he keeps pouring it, and the glass is completely overflowing. And it's spilling everywhere. And I'm like, all right, what the heck's going on? Like, did Rabbi have a couple of these earlier? Like, what's going on? And we say the prayer, and Rabbi takes it from the bottom. Now, this rabbi's got a nice beard. He's got a nice white shirt on, and he takes this cup from the bottom. It's literally spilling. He puts both hands underneath it, and he chugs the entire glass of wine, and it's all in his beard. And it's like, I'm like, oh my gosh, like Rabbi knows how to party. And I say, Rabbi, like, can you explain what's going on here? Like, what am I missing? You know, I don't understand. And he looked at me and he said, Jake, this cup is like our life, and it's full of blessings. And this cup also represents us. And if you spend your whole life with barely any wine in your glass, how can you give to other people? How can you help other people achieve greatness? And he says, but when you overflow it and you're overfilling your life with blessing and you're taking care of yourself and filling up your own cup, well, now you have plenty for everybody. Now you can really achieve the results you're looking for. And I'm like, well, bless you, Rabbi, because that was genius. All right. So now I'm loving this. And so when I asked this question in the book and everyone talks about doing something for you, I found that to be just eye-opening. And not just that, but if you take it one step further, it's not about doing everything. It's about doing a few things that make you feel good, that help you get to the level where your mind's clear, that allows you to perform at the level that you want to be performing at, clear-headed, full of energy, excited, ready to take on the day, inspiring. And that's what it comes down to, but it starts with filling up your own cup and doing something that takes care of yourself so that you could be the best coach to serve other people.
Did any of your interviewees mention something that maybe they had read about or they had tried that didn't work for them, that they then had to eliminate and find something else? Because obviously everybody has a different way of approaching filling up their own cup. For some people, it might be exercise. For some people, it might be meditation. For some people, it might be journaling. For some people, it might be think time. For some people, it might be reading. There's obviously a whole lot of different ways that people can fill up their own cup. So I'm just curious if anybody told you, hey, I read a lot about such and such and I tried it and it just didn't work for me, and so I had to go do something else. Did anybody describe a situation like that to you during your interviews?
So there were several people that have tried a bunch of these things, right? But there's one guest in particular, one expert who was talking about, he's in the fitness space, and he was talking about how he has tried literally everything, right? Every workout, he's tried all the diets, and he goes, at the end of the day, you got to move your body and you got to put the right things in your body, right? You got to hydrate. And it was really cool to just hear him talk about, sometimes in life, we try to do all these fancy things. We try the newest fad. We try the newest diet. We try the newest workout routine. We try the newest protein powder. We try the newest, the newest play, the newest defense, whatever. But sometimes you just got to go back to the basics. And you just got to do what has proven to work time and time again. And I think that from his story in the book, but then also just from like my own experience, I think that's such a true testament, is that we try to make things more difficult sometimes than they need to be. We try to overdo it because we think it's going to get us better results. But a lot of times, can you just do the basics? And can you consistently do the basics well?
That's a great point. And it not only goes for a person in their business life or a coach trying to make things happen, but you think about a player. I know Alan Stein, who we've had as a guest on the show, always talks about the famous Kobe Bryant story where Kobe's working on these drills in the gym by himself over and over again, things that you might see a kid in elementary school working on, basic footwork stuff. And Alan says, I can't believe that this guy's working on these basic moves. And Kobe says, well, that's what makes me the best, is because I'm willing to keep focusing on these simple things, these fundamentals. And I think there's something to be said for that we do sometimes get caught up in the latest, fanciest thing. And instead we forget that, look, it's pretty simple. If I want to maintain a healthy body weight, what do I need to do, right? I need to exercise and I need to eat in moderation. And sure, there's a whole bunch of other things that you could narrow it down to the real super nitty gritty and get really fine with it. But the bottom line is, if you exercise and you eat in moderation, you're probably going to maintain a healthy body weight. And so we can, as you said, we can really complicate it, or we can make it very, very simple. Thinking about you, when you went through this entire process with the book, was there one thing that stands out to you that maybe you hadn't heard before? Maybe was something you're like, ooh, I'm going to try that, and that you've incorporated into your daily practices to help your ability to perform?
There's two things. The first thing that I've really done since I've written this book, and because a lot of people have mentioned this, is taking walks without technology. Taking walks where I'm not listening to a podcast. And it's kind of interesting because a lot of times we're like, oh, I'm going to listen to a podcast on this walk. Two birds, one stone. But what I've found is that these walks without technology, without podcasts, without anything, but just me, has given me space to actually think. Because we live in a world that's so go, 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 and we're always moving, that giving yourself 10 minutes to just be and walk and think gives me so many great ideas that's enabled me to be able to actually build upon and be even a higher performer than me trying to shove as much content down as possible or trying to do as much as I can to try to just achieve more. So that was something that I thought was really interesting, that I've put into practice, and I've seen the results. It's exponential. And then the other thing is a quote, and there's a whole story on it, but I'm not gonna spoil the story for you guys yet. But there's a quote that one of the guests, her name's Allison, and she says this line: "You need to go where you're celebrated, not just where you're tolerated." And this was something that I was like, yes. It really hit me because I was just like, wow, we spend so much of our life just being tolerated, being good enough, being accepted just enough. But we know that when we're in circles where we're celebrated, we're lit up, we're excited, we're energized, we're passionate about it, we're inspired. And that quote totally hit me, and it's made me, really think about how I'm spending my time and who I'm spending my time with, because I believe that we should all be celebrated. And we need to make sure that we're celebrated in our work, with our teams, with our friends, with our partners. And so that was a really, really awesome quote that is definitely sticking with me.
I love that. I'm going to piggyback on that from a coaching perspective and then from a personal perspective as well. So first of all, from a coaching perspective, I think about the biggest issue that coaches oftentimes face, especially at the high school level, is what? Jason, do you know what that biggest thing is? What's the biggest issue that coaches have to deal with at the high school level?
Playing time.
Which comes from who? Not from the kid, but from the parents. So more often than not, let's say you're a basketball coach and you have 15 players on your team. Maybe you have one or two unhappy parents, right? Those are the unhappy parents. Those are the people that you spend 90% of your time trying to deal with, trying to figure out, trying to be tolerated by those two or three people, instead of the people, the parents who are happy and who would celebrate you. And oftentimes we don't necessarily hear from those happy parents as much as maybe we should, which is a reminder for all of us out there who are parents. And if you do have kids that are playing for a coach, it's always nice to send a little shout out or a little thank you to the coach. Trust me, they'd appreciate it. But I think we spend a lot of time trying to answer those critics instead of realizing that there are a lot of people out there that value what we do as coaches. And then on a personal level, I think about what you do with your business, what you do on a podcast, or what you think about when you're on social media, and maybe you get one or two negative comments, or you get a negative review, and you might only have one out of 100. And so you don't focus on the 99 people who are celebrating you. we tend to focus in on that one person who's negative. And I know there's the old adage out there that you want to be able to find your people, that your voice, whatever it is that you're doing, your business, your podcast, your book, it's for a certain population. And there are going to be people out there that maybe don't listen to your podcast, don't like it, don't like you as a host. There are going to be people that don't like your book. There are going to be people that don't like you as a coach. But chances are there are going to be fewer of those people than there are people who appreciate what you do. And the people that appreciate what you do are the ones that you should be spending your time with the people that are celebrating you. And that's when I heard you share that quote, that's what came to my mind, was not focusing on the negative in our life, but finding the people who are positive influences on us, whether that's in our personal life or in our business life or within our teams if we're coaches.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well said.
All right, so next question. When you are doing these interviews and you're going through and you're asking your questions, what was your most unusual question that you asked to maybe try to get a response that was outside of the box? Was there a particular question that you thought, wow, this one usually generates an interesting or unusual or creative response from the people I'm interviewing? Is there a question that fits that bill?
My favorite question that I ask is, how do you relentlessly pursue excellence, greatness, and success, however you define it, while enjoying the journey? And this question, while some people may have similar definitions of success, or they've thought about their definition of success, because sometimes we've been asked that before, but very rarely do we think about how do we be so driven and so focused while at the same time so present and enjoy the journey. And there are so many interesting ways that people describe this answer. And what's really cool about it is there's no right answer, and that to me is what's really cool about it. And one of the answers that I really, really love that one of the guests said was, he talked about the difference between the science of achievement and the art of fulfillment. And I resonated with this so much. And I think a lot of people and a lot of the early readers of the book have really resonated with this concept, because in our lives, we're so focused on achieving the result, winning the game, winning the championship, getting to the next level, getting a pay raise, whatever it is. And we forget to celebrate the wins along the way. We forget to celebrate the day to day. We forget to embrace the ups and the downs, the struggles, the adversities. But when you look at a sports team and in the NBA in a championship season, it's a fine dance between the the science of achievement and the art of fulfillment. Most championship teams will go through adversity. It's the teams that can recognize that adversity and push through that adversity to come out stronger. And so that question led me down so many rabbit holes and so many different ways of thinking, which I really, really loved, because it just gave me new perspectives on a lot of different things.
I like the idea of being able to slow down in your day-to-day and think about what it is that you want to achieve and what your definition of success really is. Because I think a lot of times as coaches and as human beings, sometimes we're chasing something that we kind of forget what it is that we're even chasing or why it is that we're chasing that thing. Sometimes we start going after things and we're like, boy, I really want that. But then we don't think about the impact that might have on our day-to-day life and our relationship with our families or our relationships with our coworkers, and how it impacts the way we spend our time. Like, I could take on another project and be like, oh, that project's exciting. I would really love to be able to do that. But then I think, okay, that might take me another 2 or 3 hours a day. Well, where am I going to carve that time out of that's still going to allow me to have a quality of life? And I find myself sometimes having to stop and realize, oh yeah, maybe I don't want to do that, because not that I wouldn't enjoy whatever the particular activity or task or achievement that I might be able to get out of it would be, but it's what would that achievement take away from other parts of my life. And I think it goes back to kind of what we've been talking about throughout the entire podcast, and sort of what is running through the theme of your book is you have to, I think, have that long-term vision of who you are, who you want to be, what type of success you want to achieve. And I think when you keep that big picture in mind, it helps you to make better decisions in the moment. I would guess that most of the people that you interviewed are people that have a long-term plan and a vision for who they are and what they want to achieve. Would you say that's accurate?
It's very accurate, and I'll reference John Gordon again, and he talks about this concept of telescope and microscope, which is exactly what we're talking about here, which is you got to be able to see far into the future, but you got to be focused on the day-to-day, right? You got to have the telescope where you can see the big picture, but you got to have the microscope where you can do the detailed analysis along the journey. So it's that exact concept. And I think at the end of the day, what it all comes down to is you got to make a decision within yourself that you want it, that you want to be better, that you want to achieve more, that you want to enjoy your day more, that you're willing to put in the work to get to the place you want to become and to be the person that you ultimately desire to become. And that's what I think is really all about. But you've got to have this vision. And if there's just a vision and no action, you're never going to achieve the vision. But if there's only action, you might not get to the vision because you might be going in the wrong direction. So you've got to have that dance of where you want to go, but also being able to execute on the day-to-day.
Absolutely. Vision combined with execution is usually a winning strategy, I would say, without question. Before we wrap up, Jake, I want to give you a chance to share how people can find out more about you, where they can buy the book. Let's get some copies of this book sold before it even hits the shelves. Tell people where they can get it, where they can find it, what they're going to get when they pick the book up and read it, and then I'll jump back in and wrap things up.
Absolutely. So the best place to find the book will be to join me on Instagram at Jake Kelfer. The link is going to be in my bio. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it anywhere that you can buy books online. But if you get it in the link in my bio, you can actually pick up a free copy, and all you got to do is just cover the shipping. So we did this because we wanted to get it into as many people's hands as possible. And the book officially comes out October 18th. But if you want to get on the pre-sale, just send me a DM on Instagram at Jake Kelfer, and we'll make sure we can get that executed for you.
Coaches, I would highly recommend you go out and pick up the new copy of The Elevated Entrepreneur from Jake Kelfer. If you haven't read his other previous books, you can also find those probably on his Instagram. I know you can find it on jakekelfer.com. So please go and check those two things out. Jake, cannot thank you enough for jumping back on with us a second time. It was a great conversation. Can't wait to read the book. I know it's going to be valuable for anyone out there who is interested in improving their performance, whether that's just in your personal life, as a coach, in whatever walk of life you may be. Please pick up a copy of The Elevated Entrepreneur by Jake Kelfer, and you'll be better for it. Thanks for checking out this episode. Really appreciate it. And to everyone out there, we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Hoop Heads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.